On today's bonus episode of The Thriller Zone, we welcome Eli Cranor, author of Ozark Dogs. Ladies and gentlemen, look who is in The Thriller Zone, Eli Cranor.
Glad to be here, Dave. How are you, man?
Man, it is so good to see you. It was just over a year ago today. It was like the 8th of August. Matter of fact, I made myself a note. Let me cheat sheet here. It was episode number 83, and here we are coming up on episode 146 a year later.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It's a lot of episodes, dude. Yeah. Congratulations.
It's people like you that make it happen, dude. Let me tell you something, and I'm just going to get in the habit of calling you dude just because I freaking do it all the time. I'm going to say that we're going to talk about Ozark Dogs. Hold on, here it is. Look at this baby. Oh, such a good... Who did this cover?
Janine Agro. She is the in-house lady at Soho, in-house art director, and she did both covers. And like they put it out, you know, like they put out like they had people that they contracted to do this, the make, and we never liked it. And then Janine took over on both ones. Don't Know Tough, and she just did them both herself, and she's really done a cool job.
This is such a good, and it says everything. It's so good. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start off the show by saying you've done it again, only better.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's the goal, right? Each one a little better.
There are so many things to say, so much ground to cover. I do want to give a little bit of props to Soho because they've been so good about watching out for us and giving us books. And Megan Abbott on the cover saying, "Tunnels into your brain with feverish power."
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a few people that are singing your praises. Lisa Unger, Michael Ferris Smith, Gabino Iglesias. I mean, you know, a couple of little players out there in writer land.
That's right.
Dude, you look good. You told me as we were getting ready to start up the show that it's been what temperature out in your neck of the woods?
So been over 100 for like 10 days running, and you know down here in the South we get that humidity too. So 100% humidity, 100%, 100 degree. Yesterday the heat index was 119. So like yeah, my daughter's school actually got canceled today. First grade power went out. And they were just so scared about, you know, it going in and out.
I'm hoping that we're not going to get shut down by the heat, but I mean, come on, 100 plus is no joke.
Yeah, no joke.
Eli, this book, I always make these little notes in the back to myself so that I can remember that. But I was like, Tammy, my wife, she's always like, "Hey, what'd you think about this book?" I said, characters thoroughly inhabited. Simultaneous storylines, succinct and engaging.
Ooh.
But that theme that runs throughout, when you can create a theme that is both heartbreaking and encouraging, you've really done something.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I wrote both Don't Know Tough and Ozark Dogs long ago. I finished Don't Know Tough like the draft that I was querying in like 2016, and I wrote this book in 2017. So it's a funny thing to look back on myself. You know, what was that, 6 years ago now, as a writer, and of course revisions and edits, all, you know, my beautiful, wonderful editor, Juliet Grames at Soho, she, you know, definitely took these books from here to here, but the stories were there. And so I wrote both of these before kids. Yeah, my daughter's 6. And I think, you know, a lot of people always talk about the darkness that is inherent in these books. And I look back and I think, you know, I wonder, you know, that if that's like a pre-dad thing, you know, going that dark as I went with both of these books. But like you said, still having a little heart in there too, you know, still having something to keep us from just tunneling into the abyss.
Into the dark abyss. Eli, let's drill down on that for a
You there?
second, because I'm sitting here thinking about this. You crafted this 6 years ago. You and I are talking now 6 years later. So first of all, let's just be real. There's a little piece of your brain that's probably, oh, hold on a second. Let me see. Who was in that book? What was going on? I mean, in all seriousness. So there's a little piece of that, and there's a little piece of...
Yeah, no doubt, man. Dave, why don't I do this?
When you
Let
get
me
back,
try and see if I get out of this basement, if I can do that.
Okay.
Can I do that? If I get out of the basement, maybe here's there's the spirit board for the next book.
Dude,
So
I love the spirit board. That's a good name.
Stole that from Jordan Harper, came up with that term. You're just trying to catch the spirit of the project, you know.
Jordan Harper is one wicked ass writer.
Oh man, have you read Everybody Knows?
Yeah.
Have you read She Rides Shotgun?
No, but just the title alone makes me want to read it.
Well, that's the one he wrote. He won the best debut Edgar for that, and back in like 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And so yeah. So now maybe we'll have a little bit better connection.
Dude, look at this. I mean, I only know you're from that.
You only know the basement, right? Like there's an actual kitchen and a there's real. Everybody thinks I just live in a cave down there, but this is where the real human beings exist in the Cranor house.
This is you have officially blown my mind. Now I don't know why. Of course I know you're a classy dude, but I'm like, I've only seen you in the basement down in the cave with the 2x4s.
That's right.
I don't know why that strikes me so funny, but here he's up in this beautiful. You'll notice Mr. Cranor's home is beautifully endeavored with white and black and fine chairs everywhere.
These are all pictures we've taken here, like at the house. I can't ever get this camera, right? So all of our own little art going there. But yeah, I heard on that other question about the years and stuff, but it is a really strange thing. But then you kind of get in these talking cycles, when a book comes out and you're doing panels and interviews and so it brings it all back. You kind of get those. It kind of makes you think differently about the whole book.
Yeah. Well, as you saw on my Twitter post, now called X, whatever the fuck that is, and I was sitting there talking. I was talking about how your books have just taken. What did I say? He jumped up the ladder a few rungs, and I mean that in all sincerity and complimentary fashion, because this book. And I know I read it in one day. I don't read any books in one day. I can't possibly do it. But for some reason, I've just finished getting over a little bit of a bug. But I got up about 5 o'clock like every day. And by, mid-afternoon, I was done. And I was like, when's the last time I read a book straight through? First of all. Second of all, and this is the funny thing that writers always do. They're excited by the fact that you're so enthusiastic that you read the whole thing in one sitting. But then what's the very first thing that your reader says? Eli, what's next?
Yeah. That's right.
And you're like, dude, it took me a year or 2 or 3 or 4 to write that. Give me a break.
Yeah. So are you asking me what's next?
Well, why don't we go ahead and slide that in? We're going to come back around to, matter of fact, because of our technical issues, you threw my little rhythm off, but that's okay. But here's what I want to do. Totally okay. You know me, I'm a freeform. I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to take a sneak peek into what Eli's working on next, but also I'm going to get Eli's elevator pitch on Ozark Dogs right here, baby. That smoking little cover. Don't go anywhere. It's David Temple and Eli Cranor right here on the Thriller Zone. We're talking about this beautiful book, Ozark Dogs. And when I say beautiful, I mean beautiful cover. When I say beautiful story, it's heartbreaking, but it's gritty and real. And this is why you're escalating and flying to the top of all the reader list, Eli. I mean, come on. Welcome back, by the way.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here, Dave.
And folks, you'll see that he's got a beautiful, sparkling, sharp, clean, beautiful background.
My wife might be on me about bringing it myself out of the basement. I had to get a new internet router down there.
I don't know, man. I know that image, it kind of fits the image. And when I first met you, we were sitting there just chewing the fat on the exposed 2x4s and the dartboard. And now we got the, what did you just tell me? The spirit board? Yeah.
Spirit board, yeah.
Spirit board. It's so much better than, what's the phrase that those life coaches are always using? First of all, sneak peek, first time heard right here in the Thriller Zone. What are you working on now?
Well, I just turned in my third book, which comes out July of 2024, and it's called Broiler. And Broiler is set in a chicken processing plant in Northwest Arkansas. About two different couples, one in like the management side of that industry, the other in like the line working side. And yeah, that's Broiler. And the thing I'm working on now that you saw on the spirit board is called Mississippi Blue 42. So Mississippi Blue 42. So it's still in the early stages, but yeah, it's like the North Dallas 40, but maybe for college football. College football in the days of the bagmen, so a little lighter than the stuff I've done in the past, taking on that big multi-billion-dollar industry that is NCAA. And all the shady deals and crime-like things that go on, underneath the surface, especially in the South.
Well, and nobody knows it like you, having been there and hanging out in that world, right?
Quarterbacking, yeah.
Well, that is exciting. And the fact that it's a little less dark is intriguing to me because it is going to show us yet another side of Eli Cranor, which I think is cool. And that begs this question, Eli. I was talking to someone recently, and they were just raving about the fact that a series of books, series of characters, is kind of the golden way to ensure, and I use that in air quotes, a long, healthy career as a writer. I personally have always been a big fan of standalones because I say, as a writer, baby, I got 200 ideas cooking at any time, So to see you branch out and get into that, is that a good thing for you? You like that? Do your people, your agents, your publishers and all dig that as well?
Talking about doing like the not as dark stuff? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, this is a story that I have kicked around for years now. So I told you I wrote Don't Know Tough in 2016. I wrote Ozark Dogs in 2017, and then the very next manuscript that I wrote was a first attempt at this college football story. And it's so big, and it's always so ever-changing. Like when I first started writing it, we had bagmen, we had, it was illegal to pay players in any way, shape, or form. And now we're in the NIL Wild West days. So I think I've written like 7 or 8 different manuscripts, some of them just complete trash, some of them getting a little closer. And so, yeah, it's something, I'm a huge Elmore Leonard fan, and Elmore stuff, it's a different sort of stuff than my stuff. Even the Westerns, and even the early stuff like the Moonshine War, it's got just kind of this different verve, and I love it. I love that it's serious, it's well written, and at the same time it's hilarious, and it's evil in places, and it's kind of this whole thing. So yeah, I'm aiming for that, and I think everybody's cool with it. That's kind of the cool thing. I've gotten green lights, to go run with this. With I guess the sporting background helps. So yeah, I'm excited, and it's funny that you mentioned series because I've always kind of dreamed it as being a potential to have, maybe not like a straight line series, but like the Elmore books that have like Karen Sisko, and how she pops up in different books, and so it's not just pure series or procedural, but yeah.
Elmore has always been one of my all-time favorites. And I don't know if we talked about Elmore last time because I went back and listened to the show. And I recall telling you that I was dating a gal when I was doing a radio show, morning show in Detroit. And come to find out, she lived right down the street from Elmore. And I said, hey, let's go down there. I want to knock on the door and say hi. She goes, are you crazy? You can't do that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm an Elmore Leonard fan. I mean, come on. Come on. This is before, I was very young and stupid. Now I'm just old and stupid. But I was like, finally I didn't do it. But I regret to this day. But boy, circling back to you, the thing about Elmore Leonard I always loved is that very thing. One of my favorite things of all. You're reading this book. Karen's in the story. You go on to another book. She pops up. You're like, oh, I remember her from. And then she weaves a story. And I think that's such an intriguing, interesting way to do it. And so out of the box, I really think, and I'm going to use this phrase, I'm going to beat this phrase too much, I'm sure. But we need to be more out of the box. The thing about rules, they're made to be broken, to be cliche, right?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, like when you were reading your backline notes on Ozark Dogs, there's a whole bunch of different characters and there's a whole bunch of storylines, and I think that book is actually only like 64,000 words. So it's a shorter, thinner manuscript. But I definitely think that style comes from my infatuation with Dutch. I've read all 42 of those books. And that's how he plays it. It's always third person. It's always past tense. So that part is pretty steady and consistent. But, we get, I always tell people, that's one of the things I get sometimes. People, reviewers or whatever, like on Goodreads or even friends or family. They're, like, oh, there were so many things going on, But I always say, Elmer, there's a scene where big main characters are having a car chase. I wish I could remember what book it is. And then, we get this scene break. And right as the car is about to careen off the road into the city mall, scene cuts and it's a janitor.
Yeah.
And you learn what he's eating for breakfast that morning. And he had a little spat with his wife. And he's taking his Walkman off of his head, old headphones. And then boom, the car hits and that scene ends and we're back, into, and that's really like a cinematic approach always. Cause Dutch, all of his stuff did so, or at least got picked up and adapted so many times. That's something you would see in a movie. That exact sort of scene, that cut to a whole new vantage point. So I don't know if I've quite got the reins of it down yet, but I like it. I like that experimentation. And I trust readers to be able and want to do that kind of fun stuff, and that's what I like as a reader.
You just said two great things. You trust your reader. And I think that's a lot of it. I think sometimes we have gotten caught up, especially in this streaming world. We've gotten so caught up in spoon feeding everybody everything. Tammy and I will sit down and watch TV shows, and we used to. Well, let's at least watch the first season. And then it became, well, at least let's give it a couple of episodes. Now we're like, 10-minute rule. 10-minute rule. You can't hold us for a good story in 10 minutes. We're out. Life's too short. Move on.
Yeah. And, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So a lot of the loudest people, given the worst reviews or the least stars or whatever, they don't speak for the whole. They don't speak for the whole. They don't speak for all the readers, all the viewers. Because I believe it's, especially in this day and time of AI and all this cookie cutter canned shit that's going to be, just really already is taken over. But now they're just going to be able to pump it out like sausage. I think real storytelling is going to be even more important, or at least that's how I'm choosing to look at it. I'm teaching this year at our local university. I'm doing a writer in residence deal and teaching intro to creative writing. So we did a week-long bit on new faculty orientation and all this stuff, and And the number one thing, Dave, that they kept talking about was AI, and fitting your classes. I mean, they were showing you like you could assign, chapter 2 of this Hemingway novel or whatever, and it's 20 pages they're supposed to read and then summarize. And they could literally go and tell, Chat GPT or whatever, summarize pages 24 through 48 of this book. So with creative writing, it's the same thing. You can tell somebody to write a short story now, and they can copy and paste it into Word. So my answer to all that has been, I bought all my students. I have 16 creative writing students. I bought them all those old composition notebooks with like the black and white marble front. And yesterday was the first day of class, and I was like, everything we do, we're going to do in here. We're not going to do any computers. We're going to write it all right here in these notebooks. And I bought them for you, and you can decorate them, and you put stickers on them. And so maybe as we get toward the end of the semester, like if they've gotten something and we want to really edit it and polish it, maybe we'll transcribe it from there. And I'm sure they could probably think of workarounds, but it would take a lot of energy. But yeah, I guess that's a big metaphor for me to say, like, that's how I feel like it's all going to go. Like it's going to go, AI is going to go this way, and we are going to get a lot of these like boom, boom, bang, bang shows that, have no heart. And then we're going to go this way, and think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff.
Man, I couldn't have said it better. I'm so in agreement with you. And I think that you're dead on. It's the essence of genuine, heartfelt storytelling. And I'm not saying heartfelt like Hallmark. I'm saying heartfelt like it's coming from your soul. I got this writing buddy who is always we challenge each other to just dig deep. What really hits you at the core of your soul and write from there. So my other point is, if you hooked up, Eli, a camera in the back of your classroom or in the front, whichever, you gave me a link to be able to watch it online, I'd pay to watch that. Here's why. Because I'm going to see a guy who is as real as it gets, doing his passion, teaching it old school and keeping it real for the kids, and learn something all at the same time. It's a synctifecta. I just made that up.
But I need a little extra side gig. I might have to start this whole stream with the Crane Dog on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Streaming with the Crane Dog. You listen. I'm always trying to think, because I do this puppy for free, and I'm always thinking, man, wouldn't it be nice if there's some way I could just throw a little tip in the tip jar for Davy Boy here, and So I'm thinking about you. I'm like, let's throw a little tip in Eli's cookie jar. And put it back into the classroom, because I love where your head is. That's brilliant. It's smart, and it's real. All right, I want to talk about. Oh, this is what. So you mentioned a broiler, which is the one you've just submitted, right?
Correct. Yep, July 2024.
Okay. Number 2. So if I'm not mistaken, this is set. There's a nuclear power plant, and I think I saw a viewpoint from your window that got turned into a chicken processing plant, which is in this story, right?
Yeah. So there is a nuke tower right out here. It's what happened to all my hair.
Right.
My beard grows green in the middle of the night. What they do in that book is they replace, that industry, chicken industry comes in, which is huge in Arkansas. Tyson was founded here, along with Walmart. There is an Easter egg in broiler, just like there is in Ozark Dogs. That Ozark Dogs ties back to Don't Know Tough. Broiler ties back to Ozark Dogs. So we do have those little Easter eggs throughout.
Nice. That was a cool thing to be able to drop, right? It wasn't a spoiler.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, give me that elevator pitch for Ozark Dogs, because I don't want to give anything away, but I want to give everything away. So roll on.
That has been such a tough thing, Dave. It's been a tough one for me to elevator pitch for Don't Know Tough was Friday Night Lights meets Ozark, the Netflix series Ozark. And I pretty much said everything, I thought you would need to get somebody's attention. Ozark Dogs is a little harder for me to wrap my head around, something that the publishing or publicity team came up with was like Hatfield and McCoy's, modern day Hatfield and McCoy's, which I've heard a lot. I think that works. But I mean, yeah, it's a simple storyline. You know, it's Liam Neeson. Taken. That was it.
Yeah,
Taken.
yeah.
I mean,
it's Taken, and it was Taken 2 and Taken 3, and they're still Taken. They're going to take forever.
It's just like a hillbilly noir version of Taken. And that's a simple way to put it. I hope there's a little more to the bone, you know, more meat on the bone than just that. But it's an old storyline. You know, it's a revenge plot. It's a thriller too, where Don't Know Tough is a mystery. You know, in Don't Know Tough we had a dead body, and the book was spent figuring out what happened to this guy. In Ozark Dogs, it's all about the safety and how, you know, how things are going to play out as they unfold. So full thriller.
Boy, your characters, you know, I find myself falling in love with your characters, even if they're bad guys. I love falling in love. Might not be the right thing, but I appreciate them because they feel real. I mean, they really do. There's so much cookie cutter bullshit out there right now. Like you and I were talking about it with AI. I mean, you can't even turn on the TV now without just seeing, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not been done 200 times. Right. But the thing about these characters, and it, you know, I say this phrase way too much, but I think it's because I'm such a content devourer. It would make such a good movie. And it was, you know, it has that feel, that darkness of like Ozark, but still, I don't know, man. It's just got a big old piece of heart beating right there in the middle.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought there was maybe a little more moments of lightness. I mean, it's dark and it's twisted, but, you know, you've got people like Dime Ray Belly, even Guillermo and Yvel, you know, the bad guys kind of have their moments of levity, you know, which I think helps kind of balance the story out.
It also helps Eli that a couple of them are dumber than a rock. I mean, really.
Yeah, that's my Omar Leonard coming out in those guys.
Just dumber than a rock. But you still find yourself going, is he gonna be that stupid? Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he sure did. Do you have people, when you're on these press junkets, do you have people ask you that classic question of, where do these people come from? And I'm going to ask it because it's such a good one, because your characters are so bigger than life. Yeah. I got to imagine there's a few fellows in the neighborhood that you borrow some of them, right?
Yeah, like I got a real good buddy who named Brandon Goats. So I'll have to send this to B when it comes out. Because for years he's been making this like dry rub, and he called it Snake and Earls. So Snake and Earls is what he just named it, and he apparently he'd been naming things Snake and Earls since he was like in high school. Like he would make a koozie, you know, get a koozie printed, and he'd just put Snake and Earls on. He just liked it, you know, so much. And so this is just an example because Snake and Earls shows up in the book. Snake and Earls is a throwaway line where Belladonna is worrying about her sons being out cutting up down at Snake and Earls. And so
Snake and Earls.
Yeah, so I mean I say it, you know, to say things like that. And then there's just, you know, just a part of it that really does. You ever play that board game Balderdash? Have you ever played Balderdash?
No, I'm familiar with it, but I don't play it, no.
Oh, Dave, you would love it. Like, you just get a card, and you roll a die, and it has like 3 things on it. It's like a person's name, a word you've probably never heard of, an acronym you've probably never heard of, and then your job is to just make something up. And then you pass all the cards around, and people read them off, and then they try to guess, like, who said which one or what's the right one. And so I love that game. And I never win it. I never win it because I always write, you know, like a whole little character sketch, for whoever this person is. And all my friends and family I'm playing with, they write like, he invented the taco stand, and that's it. And I'm like, well, he invented the taco stand in 1928. He was from El Salvador. I give this whole thing. And so I say that just to say that there is stuff like Brandon Goats and Snake and Earls rattling around in this old bald head. And then there's also, just pure imagination and just pure fun, that like when I see things that I love in a book and I want to emulate it and I want to just let it kind of flow and be fired out. So
I had Lucy Clark on recently, and we were talking about, I was telling her that I scribbled down notes all over the place, and she goes, "Oh, I do the same thing." I'm like, "I only do it in paperbacks because then a lot of times the publishers send me a hardcover, and then I save that, and next time I see Eli, I get an autograph and stuff like that." And she's like, "Yeah, screw that. I scribble on all of them." So,
yeah,
but the thing is, you got to, because I didn't do it on this one because I don't know why I didn't, but there are an occasional little line that is just so dang funny, or you twist a phrase in a way that I'd never heard before, and I'm like, when I run across that, and maybe Eli, it's occupational hazard because I read so many books, but when you run across something that's truly original, it almost metaphysically lifts off the page like it's highlighted in my brain, and I'm like, ooh, that's so delicious. Oh, and then I'll usually highlight it, and then I'll just save it for later I'm not going to steal that line, but it challenges me as a writer to think of a situation differently. You're looking at it, maybe not at ground level, maybe you move at it from above and you look down. It's just another way to observe.
Totally with you, man. I mean, the good book says there is nothing new under the sun. As practitioners of the written word, all these people who say like, oh, I don't read while I'm writing or anything like that. I'm like, well, then you ain't doing your homework, because it's our job to collect like just what you're talking about. I mean, I do that all the time. Not only do I mark them, but I'll write them down and keep them in folders. Even just figurative language, turns of phrase that I really like. And like you said, there is never going to show up exactly like that in a book. But I've got a really good comparison in my mind for, what a crescent moon looks like, or what, all these different things that I've heard, and they're there. It's all just adding fodder to the fire when you go and try to write something new. So yeah, I'm totally with you.
Speaking of that phrase, you used that line. I'm not going to take the time now because I don't think I highlighted it, but I remember it's jumping out at me about the crescent moon, the way it was hanging. You have this beautiful way of, as you're setting up the scene, you won't beat a dead horse. You'll just do this little scene setup without going, the night was dark and it was filled with crickets and blah, 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 blah. You just go, crescent moon was hanging on its edge looking for a place to land or something like that. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh.
I think that's an Elmore Leonard thing too, man. He's got those 10 rules of writing. He's like, cut all the crap out that people skip, and something that I just thought of sitting here is because you brought it up, and I don't know if I've ever put this into words, but a good way to set a scene is like one line of poetry and then get to the meat. Like open it up with that one little beautiful, very rhythmic line, maybe two.
Yeah.
And then get to the meat, like this is a novel, this is a thriller, this is a crime novel, it's a little bit of poetry goes a long way.
That's a soundbite for this show because that's what you do, and that's what I love. Just that little, and what's neat about a bit of poetry right before a potentially dark or gruesome scene is the juxtaposition of the two different mindsets. And that's what makes that even more intriguing. It adds power to what's coming because of the power that's leading the way.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And you got to be a reader of poetry too. Like we were just talking about where you get your stuff. And I don't know if I don't read poetry for the similes. I read poetry for the rhythm. I read poetry for the flow, because that to me is what makes a good line. Is when it really ends up just landing just right.
Well, come on, I'm going to pick your brain because last time on last show a year ago, I asked you what was on your TBR list or your nightstand, and you rattled off a few, and I looked up a couple of them, and I read one or two of them. But poetry, who's somebody you love? Who's an inspiration to you that you'll pick up from time to time, probably close to your desk, just almost as a reference tool, I bet you.
Let me go grab it. Be right back.
Go. I'm going to take a little break right now. Folks, while Eli is going to grab a little piece of poetry and I'm lifting a little Gatorade, we'll take a short break and be right back, right here on the Thriller Zone. I'm kidding. We didn't really take a break. We're just hanging out, waiting for Eli because, by the way, let's promote once again Ozark Dogs, Eli Cranor, second novel. It is deliciously powerful. You're going to want to read it. In this Southern thriller, two families grapple with the aftermath of a murder in their small Arkansas town. And he's back.
Well, I said I was going to grab it, and I think I took it to the new office at the university, which that has been a problem. I keep looking for things, and I'm like, now I have two offices, and I'm doing stuff back and forth. But it's Frank Stanford. Have you ever heard of Frank Stanford?
No, I'm writing it down.
He was up at the University of Arkansas, which I'm repping today. Go Razorbacks.
I see that.
And the one that I love is The Battlefield Where the Moon Says I Love You. So Frank is really, I've talked about Johnny Wink before, and Johnny Wink is a poet. He was my former mentor, still my mentor, going into his 50th year of teaching creative writing at my alma mater. And he knew Frank and got me on that book, and it's like this long, like epic poem. It's this huge thing. But Johnny's got this crazy trick that he started back around when I was in undergrad. So like 2008, 2009, he started memorizing all of Shakespeare's sonnets. And like, what are there, 152 sonnets? I might be wrong on that, but Johnny has every one of them committed to memory. Still,
oh my
he's
goodness.
79 years old, and he walks in. This is what he does at the beginning of every class. He walks in, and I've got lessons in chemistry, not a collection of sonnets, but he carries the sonnet collection, and he'll throw it on the desk to a student, and he'll say, pick a number, any number. And they pick sonnet 64, and then he'll say, pick a line, and they'll pick line 8. And then he'll go like he's in the circus or something, he'll go like this and he'll tell you. And so because of that, that's something else that I've started doing is committing stuff to memory. So like I've got a couple of sonnets, I've got a Rudyard Kipling, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make room for their doubting too. And then the sonnets, and I recited a sonnet yesterday for the creative writing class because we're doing some poetry in there too. And I remember asking Johnny, why? Like, why are you at? Because, Johnny is a poet and he writes. But I said, why do you memorize these things? And he said, Eli, it's beautiful furniture for the brain.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so beautiful furniture for your mind. And in today's time, that's what I told my students who, that generation, like anxiety, depression, that stuff is huge. It was a lot of the stuff we were talked about as we were, for all people right now. And so what better way to kind of meditate and chill out than run through, when I've seen my times fell hand to face, the rich, proud cost of outworn, buried age. And now that's a very dark sonnet, but you could do the love one. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which bends with the remover to remove, or alters when it alteration finds. So there's that iambic pentameter. There's that stressed, unstressed that you really want to find and hit when you are trying to be poetic in a thriller or a crime novel.
I feel like I just went to school, Eli.
I'm all fresh, you know. I had my first day of class yesterday, so I'm just rattling off the same old stuff.
It's all good. Did I hear? Did I hear this correctly? Did you do the audiobook for Ozark Dogs?
Yeah, yeah. I did it for Don't Know Tough too, and the Don't Know Tough experience was hellacious because I did it in Memphis, which is about 4 hours from here, and we did it in 3 days back to back, 3 sessions. So it was like 26 hours of studio time to get like the 9-hour audiobook done. And it was my first like virginal experience. I didn't know what I was doing. And so with Ozark Dogs, we did it here in Arkansas, just about an hour from my house, and did it over like a month and a half. Like I'd just go in on a Saturday for, you know, like an hour or two. And that was much, much better.
I remember you doing it for Don't Know Tough because that's how I found you. I found that in that social media where you're sitting in front of a classroom and you're reading that blurb.
Yeah.
I was just sucked into the camera. And I remember, all right, I don't know who this guy is, but I got to find him. So on this one, first of all, you did the smart thing. Having done a handful of audiobooks, it's a feat. So it's way better to take 2-3 hours at a time than trying to crush 8 to 10.
Yep.
It's way harder than people think. While you're doing, you should just sit in there talking, Dave. How hard could it be? Okay. Yeah. You give it a shot. Tell me how you like it.
Yeah. Just your focus. I mean, your voice is one thing, and you know, there's a lot of tea and honey and all that stuff you can do, but your voice does give out, but just your mind, you know, and really keeping track of the characters and the voices and the inflections for, you know, it was so much better to take a break and re-energize, you know, to come back into that.
I did a series for Frank Zafiro last year, and I got to where I would draw little sketches of the characters and I would paste them up on the monitor when I'd be reading the audiobook and then I would put one word that would trigger my thought, like gruff or skinny or stupid or whatever, so that I could just glance up, get that image. Because to your point, especially if you're trying to really cover ground and you're wanting to go, you know, so what's his name walked into the bar and said, "Oh, you gonna get me a drink or what?" Yeah, sure. You know, and if you're shifting it back and forth, it really wears you the hell out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and that's something I've started doing, like with that spirit board we walked by earlier, is I've started printing off, finding the perfect character image, and printing it off, you know, like even for when I'm starting a book. But no, I've never read anybody else's. I don't think I'd want to, man. Like it would take such study, you know. That's why I do like doing mine, because I know them so well already. That I almost just don't trust anybody else to do it, you know, at this point. Now, I don't know if I'll keep doing it.
Well said. And a lot of those filler words like blah, 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 Bob said, blah, 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 he looked over. A lot of the stuff you throw away. So it helps. It helps paint the scene. And if you're really immersed in the book as a listener, you don't need all that stage direction. And you can do it by just a lilt.
And in some ways, that's the most painful part. Is by this point, the book is set in stone. You know, like there's no change. There's no going back and changing it, or at least by the 2 times I've done the audiobook. And that
I know it's coming.
And reading aloud is a big part of my editing process. So I've already read the book aloud multiple times by the time I get in there and start. But there's still always something that you're like, you know, I wish, you know. And I even try to change it, you know, like as I say it, like I'll try and change it for the audiobook. And then the Audible director will buzz in, we had a mistake on the previous line. Like, can you read that again? I'm like, no, I want it this way.
Audible is a tough audience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I have to say that this was Ozark Dogs it was a wonderful read. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed even more just catching up with you. I love seeing you on social media and all the love that's coming down your way of people lifting you up, rising that tide, just realizing what a mad talent you are.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun. Are you going to be in Balchicon?
Yes, I am. Are you going to be there?
Heck yeah, brother. Heck yeah.
Dude, that's next week.
I know.
Right now, folks, if you want to learn more about my friend Eli, go to elicranor.com, learn all about him, follow him on Twitter, now called X, at Eli Cranor. Such a good book, and cannot wait to see you at BousherCon.
Yeah, dude. See you at the bar.
Where all the goodness happens.
I might be wrong on that, but Johnny has every one of them committed to memory. Still,
oh my
he's
goodness.
79 years old, and he walks in. This is what he does at the beginning of every class. He walks in, and I've got lessons in chemistry, not a collection of sonnets, but he carries the sonnet collection, and he'll throw it on the desk to a student, and he'll say, pick a number, any number. And they pick sonnet 64, and then he'll say, pick a line. And they'll pick line 8, and then he'll go like he's in the circus or something, he'll go like this, and he'll tell you. And so because of that, that's something else that I've started doing is committing stuff to memory. So like I've got a couple of sonnets, I've got a Rudyard Kipling, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make room for their doubting too. And then the sonnets, and I recited a sonnet yesterday for the creative writing class because we're doing some poetry in there too. And I remember asking Johnny, why? Like, why are you at? Because, Johnny is a poet and he writes. But I said, why do you memorize these things? And he said, Eli, it's beautiful furniture for the brain.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so beautiful furniture for your mind. And in today's time, that's what I told my students that generation, like anxiety, depression, that stuff is huge. It was a lot of the stuff we were talked about as we were, for all people right now. And so what better way to kind of meditate and chill out than run through, when I've seen my times fell hand to face, the rich, proud cost of outworn buried age. And now that's a very dark sonnet, but you could do the love one. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which bends with the remover to remove, or alters when it alteration finds. So there's that iambic pentameter. There's that stressed, unstressed that you really want to find and hit when you are trying to be poetic in a thriller or a crime novel.
I feel like I just went to school, Eli.
I'm all fresh, I had my first day of class yesterday, so I'm just rattling off the same old stuff.
It's all good. Did I hear this correctly? Did you do the audiobook for Ozark Dogs?
Yeah. I did it for Don't Know Tough too. And the Don't Know Tough experience was hellacious because I did it in Memphis, which is about 4 hours from here. And we did it in 3 days back to back, 3 sessions. So it was like 26 hours of studio time to get like the 9-hour audiobook done. And it was my first like virginal experience. I didn't know what I was doing. And so with Ozark Dogs, we did it here in Arkansas, just about an hour from my house, and did it over like a month and a half. Like I'd just go in on a Saturday for, like an hour or two. And that was much, much better.
I remember you doing it for Don't Know Tough because that's how I found you. I found that in that social media where you're sitting in front of a classroom and you're reading that blurb.
Yeah.
I was just sucked into the camera. And I remember, all right, I don't know who this guy is, but I got to find him. So on this one, first of all, you did the smart thing. Having done a handful of audiobooks, it's a feat. So it's way better to take 2-3 hours at a time than trying to crush 8 to 10.
Yep.
It's way harder than people think. While you're doing, you should just sit in there talking, Dave. How hard could it be? Okay. Yeah. You give it a shot. Tell me how you like it.
Yeah. Just your focus. I mean, your voice is one thing, and there's a lot of tea and honey and all that stuff you can do, but your voice does give out. But just your mind, and really keeping track of the characters and the voices and the inflections for, it was so much better to take a break and re-energize, to come back into that.
I did a series for Frank Zafiro last year, and I got to where I would draw little sketches of the characters, and I would paste them up on the monitor when I'd be reading the audiobook, and then I would put one word that would trigger my thought, like gruff or skinny or stupid or whatever, so that I could just glance up, get that image. Because to your point, especially if you're trying to really cover ground and you're wanting to go, what's his name walked into the bar and said, "Oh, you gonna get me a drink or what?" Yeah, sure. And if you're shifting it back and forth, it really wears you the hell out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and that's something I've started doing, like with that spirit board we walked by earlier, is I've started printing off, finding the perfect character image, and printing it off, like even for when I'm starting a book. But no, I've never read anybody else's. I don't think I'd want to, man. Like it would take such study. That's why I do like doing mine, because I know them so well already. Sure. That I almost just don't trust anybody else to do it, at this point. Now, I don't know if I'll keep doing it.
Well said. And a lot of those filler words like blah, 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 Bob said, blah, 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 he looked over. A lot of the stuff you throw away. So it helps. It helps paint the scene. And if you're really immersed in the book as a listener, you don't need all that stage direction. And you can do it by just a lilt.
And in some ways, that's the most painful part. Is by this point, the book is set in stone. Like there's no change. Yeah. There's no going back and changing it, or at least by the 2 times I've done the audiobook. And that, I know it's coming. And reading aloud is a big part of my editing process. So I've already read the book aloud multiple times by the time I get in there and start. But there's still always something that you're like, I wish, and I even try to change it, like as I say it, like I'll try and change it for the audiobook, and then the Audible director will buzz in, we had a mistake on the previous line, like, can you read that again? I'm like, no, I want it this way.
Audible is a tough audience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I have to say that this was Ozark Dogs It was a wonderful read. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed even more just catching up with you. I love seeing you on social media and all the love that's coming down your way of people lifting you up, rising that tide, just realizing what a mad talent you are.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun. Are you going to be in BoucherCon?
Yes, I am. Are you going to be there?
Heck yeah, brother.
Right now, folks, if you want to learn more about my friend Eli, go to elicranor.com, learn all about him, follow him on Twitter, now called X, at Eli Cranor. Such a good book, and cannot wait to see you at BoucherCon.
Yeah, dude. See you at the bar.
Where all the goodness happens.